a certified G,
That's me.
and a bona fide stud.
That's Jeff.
And you can't teach that.
Ladies and gentlemen,
E T A. Excuse the aggravation, but I'm Shane, and I'm here playing with my puppy and talking to Jeff, and we'll be talking about Star Wars today.
Yes, we will, and we have a lot to talk about since I was disappointed in it.
You were, and I was not, and I guess I'll let you ramble about why you were disappointed in it, and I'll see if I should call you an idiot or just talk about it.
My disappointment in it was because it was so much more like a reboot than a continuation. There was too much A New Hope. It was almost like J.J. Abrams, and I'll give credit to J.J. Abrams. He kept it Star Wars. You know, one of the main things about Star Wars when George Lucas did it, and he went round and round and round with the Screenwriters Guild and the actors unions, was because he
Ow, ow, ow.
ripped your headphones off.
Sorry,
again?
I thought I was on mute, sorry.
Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. George Lucas. One of the big things about him is he went round and round with the Screen Actors Guild and the Actors Union and Hollywood because he did not have the opening credits. He went straight into the scrolling story, and that was something that really upset the actors in Hollywood in the 70s, 80s, and 2000s when he brought it out again. And if you watch movies, you'll notice that even TV shows, they always have the opening credits. They always have the names floating on the screen in the beginning. And that was one thing I liked about the way J.J. Abrams did, is that he didn't do that either. He opened it up just like George Lucas did in all 6 of his without the opening credits. So I like the fact that J.J. Abrams went out of his way to keep it Star Wars. The thing that bothered me is it was more than throwbacks to the original Star Wars, like having the hollow chess board and the droids talking about liking hollow chess and that kind of stuff was a nice callback. The fact that it seemed like he sat down with an original script of Star Wars, A New Hope, and said, okay, I like this part, I'm going to put this one in my movie, I'm just going to change that from Luke to Ren, okay, I'm going to change that from R2 to IB-88. It almost seemed like he wrote the same story that George Lucas did 40 years ago. It seemed like there were too many similarities and too many things that happened exactly the same way, with it being a teenage force-sensitive girl on a desert planet and a droid on a desert planet who's got some kind of stolen secret hidden inside him that he needs to get back to the Resistance, and escaping the planet on the Millennium Falcon, and there was just so many things that were the same that it just took that vibe out of it for me, where it didn't seem like it was this continuation.
See, I when I watched it, I didn't even think about that, and that's the thing that gets me, is that when you're watching the movie, at least when I was watching the movie, none of that came to me. I mean, later on, thinking about the movie and doing a write-up on Facebook, which I know you read, I did kind of start thinking about that, and then I started reading people calling it A New Hope with better effects, or A New Hope with special effects and CGI graphics and stuff like that, and I thought that was completely unfair. I mean, if you think about back to the Phantom Menace, a lot of that could also have been called A New Hope Part 2, or whatever you want to call it. Return of the Jedi also started on a desert planet and ended with the Death Star being destroyed.
Yeah, but the difference is
Enough.
between those is that they started on a desert planet. They didn't have all the other things in there where it was a single X-wing fighter that went in to blow up the big bad planet, and an emperor that's not on the planet, he happens to be somewhere else. It just, right down to the way that the stormtroopers acted and everything about it, it was I can see where people said, yeah, a Phantom Menace was like that. But in all reality, the only real thing that a Phantom Menace had in common with A New Hope was the fact that Anakin was found on Tatooine. It didn't open on Tatooine. It opened, he was found on Tatooine, and he blew up the Trade Federation ship at the end. Other than those two similarities, there really wasn't a New Hope, where this one had so many things, and I did notice them as I was going through the movie. It's like I noticed, right away from the beginning, I noticed the fact that I'm like, this is a desert planet, and maybe it's because before the movie came out, there were people already talking about how it was Tatooine, and then they had to make up that it was actually Jakku. But I started noticing the similarities while I was sitting there watching it, and I think that's where my disappointment came in.
Well, hopefully that won't happen to you with the next movie, because I don't think the next movie is going to be like a clone of Empire Strikes Back or anything like that. For me, The Force Awakens was probably the third or fourth best of the Star Wars movies. I think Empire Strikes Back is always going to be the best movie. I mean, could they ever top it? Of course they could, possibly. But Empire is really the only 5-star movie in the Star Wars franchise. And then, of course, you also have The Revenge of the Sith, which was very good as well. And then you have A New Hope, and now you have, and then of course now you have The Force Awakens. So I think those are probably in some order the 4 best of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that they might be the 4 best. I also liked Revenge or Return of the Jedi too. I would say that
everybody denigrates that movie, but I think it's very good.
I thought it was, in fact, up until a few years ago, I had actually thought that was my probably my favorite, right behind, because I was a kid. But then once I became an adult and actually realized how good Empire was, that obviously became my favorite. And then
I think I actually said that on the show that we lost of this recording. Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way when I was a kid. I watched Return of the Jedi over and over and over again. But now as an adult, I realize how good of a film Empire.
Just how good of a story it is, and how it was really. I mean, when you look back at the '80s, how many times did the bad guy win at the end? It was kind of refreshing, and I liked.
And of course we get that classic line, and I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
That one, and I had a friend of mine, and it's just off topic here, but I had a friend of mine who was courting a girl, and maybe that's showing my age too, using the word courting, but
The Courtship of Princess Leia was a Star Wars book.
Yes, but he came up to me and she said she Han Soloed me, and I thought that was fantastic too, because in the another one of the iconic lines from that movie is when Leia says, I've always loved you, or I love you, and he goes, I know. And that to me,
your poor friend.
He said to this girl that he's seen, I really like you, and she said, I know. And then I got a text from him, I just got Han Soloed, so I thought that was fantastic. But for me, it was always
and of course we can't avoid we can't get through the lines without saying the one that got everybody's attention. I am your father.
Exactly. But Empire, easily the best now that I'm an adult. For me, the second best though was Sith. I don't know that there was another complete movie. I think if Empire was a 5-star, Sith was a 4.5 star. I thought the only thing I didn't like about Sith is that they condensed too much of the rounding up the Jedi and Vader hunting down the Jedi and killing them, because it was always the story about how Vader hunted down. And if you play some of the video games from that time frame between after the Clone Wars to when Vader started, with Luke Skywalker and A New Hope, it's always Vader hunting down Jedi. To me, they kind of condensed that a little too much and made it into one swift movement where all the Jedi were gone, except for Luke, or except for Obi-Wan and Yoda. So that to me was disappointing, and that's probably what knocked it down to a little bit less than Empire. But Sith to me was a fantastic movie all around. And then
while we're on Revenge of the Sith, I didn't realize this until a few weeks ago, but apparently there's been some kind of misconception that when Kenobi and Anakin are having the fight on, I can't think of the name of the planet they were on, but where all the what's that?
Mustafar.
Okay, when they're having their lightsaber battle on Mustafar, and the lava's rising up, and Kenobi says, "You can't win, Anakin. I have the higher ground." He was not talking about the fact that because he was on the actual higher ground, that the person that has a higher ground in a lightsaber battle automatically has the advantage. What he was referring to is the fact that lava was rising up, Anakin was lower, he was going to get burned by the lava and stuff. And apparently people did not realize that. I had no idea of that until I saw that on Mythbusters, and they were trying to disprove that. And I can't believe that Adam didn't realize that.
Well, the thing that about that whole scene to me with the higher ground, to me it was always kind of a religious undertone, because we had throughout the entire movies it was always Luke calling it, or Han called it, a hokey religion. It was always referred to as the light and the dark, being good versus evil, being God versus devil. For me, when he said you can't win, I've got the higher ground, to me that meant I'm on the good side here. I'm the light side. You strike me down, and I will still win because I'm going to heaven. Or that was the feeling that I always got out of it, was that he was more talking about how he had the higher ground because he believed in the higher power and the good side of the world, and he can't lose because he's already accepted being the goodness.
I had actually never thought of it that way. That's actually a very good way, or a very good take on that. So almost like so when you say that, something like that, then it's almost it almost kind of brings it full circle to where if you actually were watching it from 1 all the way through 6 in order for the first time, then that could almost be foreshadowing his conversation with Darth right before Darth kills him in A New Hope then.
Exactly, and I think that was a great way for Lucas to set it up, where people had talked about how the only real thing they got out of the original trilogy and the 3 prequels was the fact that it was a story about Anakin. But if you look at the interweaving of all of the stuff, there's lines that Qui-Gon uses that Obi-Wan uses in Empire. There's lines that Obi-Wan uses in Sith that he then turns around and uses a variation of it in A New Hope. And I thought Lucas did a good job of bringing those together. But I think we're getting way off topic here now, as far as.
Well, no, we're still on Star Wars. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, on Star Wars, but as far as The Force Awakens goes, to me it was a great movie, and I will own it. I will watch it. I'm a Star Wars fan, true and true. I've read all the books. I've read all the, listened to audiobooks, read the books, read the comics. Right now, one of my favorite comics actually is Darth Vader. It's a Darth Vader, and there's a side comic to that also going as Star Wars that are from after Luke blows up the Death Star on Yavin and going forward, where Vader's trying to find this young Force sensitive guy he doesn't even know that Luke's his son at that point, trying to find Luke, and then during the Star Wars series they're trying to figure out, Luke is trying to figure out what the Force has to do with anything, and finds Obi-Wan's journal, and it's a fantastic look at the way that it works. But as far as the A Force Awakens goes, it just, to me, it would have been almost better if they had gone more with the Thrawn trilogy. As far as the story, instead of almost taking everything that was the Thrawn trilogy and saying, we're going to change this. Yep, it is still, Han and Leia's son that becomes bad, but instead of it being Jace, we're going to make it Ben. It just seemed off.
Well, I think any Star Wars fan that read the books would have loved to see the Thrawn trilogy get made into a series, but at the same time, the Thrawn trilogy is only set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. And obviously, the I mean, if they had done that, like instead of making the prequels, if they had done follow-ups to Return of the Jedi at that point, that would have made perfect sense and would have been awesome. But the problem is that Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, I almost forgot the name of the most famous guy from there, they're just too old to play those roles. So what they could have done though was they could have had the Thrawn trilogy happen and we could have just seen a follow up from there. It also bugs me that to me the best original character from the novels is Mara Jade, who ends up becoming, starts off as a major antagonist for Luke Skywalker and ends up becoming not only his wife but also the mother of his child. To me, we're basically losing her. I mean, could we see her at some point or see that she'd existed? I suppose we could, but to me it seems like they've made Luke into a recluse who probably never did get married, never did have a relationship with a woman other than kissing his sister.
And I'm hoping that doesn't that the Mara Jade does become part of it, because I just have this feeling that it's going to turn out that because if you look at some of the other similarities to they've got Rey with flashbacks of her her parents being taken away, and when you're actually seeing that flashback, you're hearing Obi-Wan's voice, you're hearing not only Allen Guinness's voice from the original trilogy, but you're also hearing Ewan McGregor's from the prequels. You're hearing their voices in there, and what that's kind of leading up to is this Luke's son? Is this Luke's daughter who he hid on Jakku, much like he was hidden on Tatooine? And then there's other things with it too, where and now I lost my train of thought because the 4-year-old came in again in his chatty box.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, you were I think on a good path. I mean, there are some people that think that it's maybe it's Ben's granddaughter or something like that, but I think it's far more likely that it actually is Luke's child.
And that's one thing that bugged me too, is
especially since the lightsaber was calling to her the way that we saw that chick in. That I shouldn't say chick, but the alien lady, the wise old alien lady, in that bar, said that the lightsaber is calling to her like it called to Luke Skywalker and his father before him. Well, why would it call to her if she wasn't in some way related to Luke?
Well, that's exactly it, and the Force is strong in her, and that's obvious. And there was a couple other things that I was confused about too, is why is the Force so much stronger with Kylo Ren and Rey than it was with Anakin, who was the chosen one, and Luke, who was the chosen one's kid, who actually ended up bringing balance to the Force? And call back there too, that being they'd always talked about how in the trilogy or in the prequels about how he was going to bring balance to the Force. Anakin was going to be the one born of the midichlorians who was going to bring balance to the Force. And in reality, he's the one who did. At the end of Jedi, it was his son who helped him defeat the Emperor, and both Anakin and Luke were united as on the light side of the Force at the end of the movie, so they had brought the balance back to the Force.
Well, that's another misconception that we could get into, but I think it's going to take too much time.
Yeah,
we don't have enough of it left
here now too, but
yeah. The other thing I wanted to say that I know I mentioned in the last time we did this show is, and I think it's important to talk about is the what happened with Han Solo, because I thought that J.J. Abrams got Han Solo's voice completely right. Especially the way that he was talking, like when Rey says, "Is that even possible?" and he says, "I never ask until after I've done it." That was, to me, was classic Han Solo, and I kind of like clapped my hands together and went yes during the theater, in the theater watching that. But also, I think that another thing with Han is that I think that the comparisons to A New Hope could have been completely eschewed if Ben had not killed him, if Ben had not, run him through the chest with a lightsaber and thrown him off a balcony or off a bridge into an abyss, if Ben had actually had done what it looked like he was going to do by dropping his helmet and asking him for help, if Ben had actually turned away from the dark side the way that Vader couldn't, without almost being dead. If Vader had, if Kylo Ren had joined the Resistance, and I think that would have had changed the story to where people could not have said it was just like A New Hope.
Well, and it's possible, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to J.J. Abrams and the way that scene played out. Is there was a part of me right up until he used the lightsaber and killed Han. There was a part of me that actually thought he was going to come back over to the light side. I was bought into that scene completely, even though I knew Kylo Ren's supposed to be the antagonist throughout the entire trilogy. There was a part of me that really, really bought into that scene, and I thought, okay, maybe he's going to come home with Han, and we're going to see a story where maybe he turns down the line. So that scene right there, that actually is one of the few scenes of the movie that really caught me off guard.
And the other thing with that scene is that the way that they show Leia's reaction, feeling Han's death in the Force, because obviously she couldn't see it happen, so it had to be from the Force that she was able to feel that. By us seeing that reaction, we know it's not like a comic book death where he's going to come back. We know he actually did die.
And that was a nice callback to the original trilogy too, with her feeling at the end of Jedi that Luke had gotten off the Death Star, and also A New Hope, where Ben had the feeling when Alderaan was destroyed, how he got the feeling that something terrible had happened. So that's a nice callback too with the Force sensitive people that I really enjoyed.
Okay, so I think with this discussion we've determined that really I was right, it was a good movie, and you were wrong, it's not a disappointing movie.
No, it's still disappointing because I wanted a continuation, not a reboot. It's still disappointing to me, and it probably always will be. I never said it was a bad movie. I just said it was disappointing. And I think that's where it gets a little construed, is that it's like I was saying that Bray Wyatt, not saying that he had a horrible year, but he was disappointing. It's the same thing with this movie. It's not saying it's not a bad movie. I enjoyed it. I'll watch it hundreds of times. But to me, because I was looking for something more, is why it was disappointing to me. And one thing, I don't know, how much time do we have left here? Do you know?
I don't know. We might even be over.
No, because I was going to bring up the fact that the Force is so much stronger now with Kylo Ren being able to stop a laser blast, and Rey being able to trick a stormtrooper without actually. We should just make this into a 2-part show.
Well, yeah, I mean that's not sure, but I mean you're right. I mean that's stuff that I think the Monopoly discussion kind of put us to a point where we were, we weren't where we were when we first recorded this. That's
right.
Pretty much where we're at.
Well,
but I mean you're right. I mean and is it because the Force is stronger? Is it because the maybe the new giant Sith Lord is and that's something that got me too with the movie is he really that big, or was it just that the projection of his image was that big?
The rumor that I'd heard about this is the fact that is actually Darth Plagueis, the one that Palpatine said he destroyed when he became a Sith Lord. That this is actually Darth Plagueis that is going to be revealed as the new Sith Lord, which I thought was kind of an interesting take on it too.
Oh. Okay. But does that make him a giant, or does that make him not a giant?
It makes him not a giant.
Okay.
It's just the whole. But that was another interesting thing that I had heard, and that the other thing too is going into the new movies. I want to know what the hell happened. Why did Ben turning to the dark side? Why was that enough to break up Han and Leia? Were they ever married? Where's Mara Jade? Is Mara Jade going to be a part of the new series? Is Rey really what we think as Luke's daughter? There's a lot of that stuff that I really want answers to in the new movies, and also why.
And of course, the answer there, the question everybody wants answered is, where is Lando?
Yeah, that's also. I guess that's not really high on my list because Lando was never one of my favorite characters.
Well, I think Billy D. Williams is dead. I think that's probably why he is not in the movie. But he was still kind of a major part of Return of the Jedi. At
Yeah,
least.
Return of the Jedi, he was, but he was. I really did like him in Empire, but uh, y- I think that's where Finn is going to come into play. I think Finn has something is kind of the new Lando character, where
I thought you were gonna say he's Lando's son.
oh I no I don't think that I don't think that at all. But I do think that um, he's going to be the new Lando character, where
Yeah, that would be kind of like Gateway being Bishop's father, where like all the black characters have to be related in
exactly
some
yeah
manner.
yeah. But it does the thing too is like are they more strong in the Force? Is Kylo Ren able to stop blaster bolts and not pay attention to that blaster bolt and it still hover there while he's talking to and killing somebody else? Is he able to do that? Is Rey able to use the Force so much quicker because she is because there's not as many Jedi as there were? And if that's the case, why was Luke not able to, and Vader not able to do similar things when they were supposedly the last two Jedi? It just and it's hard for me to believe that there would only be two Jedi, three Jedi, four Jedi left on the planet. There's a lot of stuff we need to have answers to that just I don't know if we're ever going to get.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And that might be a discussion for another day, or maybe another movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Though I just want to say I also am looking to the new Star Wars movie coming out this year as well.
Oh, I am too, and I'll see it in 3D probably as well, opening weekend, just like I did this one. It's the disappointment for me was not, and I doubt I'll have the same disappointment now in the next movie because I know what to expect. I know.
In the next movie, the next movie, I don't know if you, I don't know if you mean the next movie in that series, or if you mean just the next movie in general, because the next movie is actually supposed to take place right before A New Hope.
Really, what's that?
Rogue Squadron, where we see how they steal the Death Star
Oh
from
yeah,
us.
okay, but I thought that was not. I thought that was supposed to be a TV series, not a movie.
Not anymore.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
I like.
When this was come out in 2016.
I know that Lucas was supposedly going to make a series which got scrapped when Disney bought Star Wars, but how he was going to make a Clone Wars series that bridged the gap between the end of, or not Clone Wars, a series that bridged the TV series that bridged the gap between the end of Sith and the start of A New Hope. That actually did show Vader stalking and destroying the Jedi. But I don't know if that's something that they're going to do anymore or not.
Yeah, I don't know either. I know it was supposed to be on FX, and there was supposed to be a series of Star Wars series on FX. That's probably the one you're talking about.
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah, as far as I know, they scrapped that when they decided to go with the movies.
Well, yeah, when Disney bought Lucasfilms, that turned a lot of things around. That
Yeah.
scrapped their.
I just hope at some point they decide to, Disney decides to go ahead and finish this whole thing with the Empire being the main antagonist for the rebellion, and we get the Republic rebuilt, and we get to see this something like the Yuuzhan Vong come in, where there's actually a different antagonist for our heroes.
Basically, something like what happened over the last 30 years before Kylo Ren became evil.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. See, and that was another thing too that was I missed. That was a callback to to the original New Hope, was the fact that they destroyed
the original A New Hope. There is only one A New Hope.
the original Star Wars A New Hope is what I was trying to say. But the fact that they blew up Alderaan in A New Hope, which was the Republic Senate at the time, and in in A Force Awakens, the new Death Planet ended up blowing up the Republic Senate at the time. That was another one of those things where it was like, oh, okay, here we go again. It's another. Oh, this is exactly what happened before. I want to see what's going to happen. I want to see where this goes. That's something I really need to see.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I think we did just
And-
talk for another.
So we're just going to cut it off right now. And next few episodes, we're going to be talking about Black Mirror. We'll be talking about Wrestle Kingdom 10. And that's all we got, folks. We'll try to do better next time. When I think of Finn, I always think of the guy from Buffy.
Yeah, that's I have the same problem. Riley Finn, her boyfriend from season 4.
Exactly. Well, season 4 and 5. But anyway, I'm always so pedantic about that kind of stuff. Jesus.
And I don't recognize season 5 because it had vampires. Yeah.
What do you mean? What? I think my mind just exploded.
That's
That could be the whiskey
it's
also.
possibly the whiskey on my end too.